What would actually happen if Donald Trump becomes US president again?
We will clean out all of the corrupt actors in our national security and intelligence apparatus.
We've gone through his manifesto and his party's election program. We've analyzed his interviews and countless campaign speeches.
For those who have been wronged and betrayed, I am your retribution. I am your retribution. He says, you're not going to be a dictator, are you? I said, no, other than day one. We're closing the border and we're drilling.
And we took a look at the controversial
Project 2025.
What's all that really about?
Project 25 has absolutely nothing to do with me.
One thing is certain. If Trump wins on November 5th and follows through on what he's promised, the United States of America would change. Political stances. And as Europeans, we are naturally arrogant, the worst, and have a vested interest. As in, we are very much afraid of Putin and didn't invest enough money into our militaries. On a serious note, we dislike when quotes are taken out of context. So in this video, every quote will have a source in the lower left corner. In general, all our sources are in the description, so you can check our claims for yourself. And no, this video will not deal with Kamala Harris. We linked a series of resources on her below. Let's jump in. January 20, 2025, Washington, D.C. Donald Trump is sworn in as the 47th President of the United States.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations, Mr. President.
In this fictional scenario, the Republicans have won a majority in both houses of Congress. On the same day, Trump and his team get to work.
Here's my plan to dismantle the deep state and reclaim our democracy from Washington corruption once and for all. First, I will immediately reissue my 2020 executive order restoring the president's authority to remove rogue bureaucrats, and I will wield that power very aggressively.
In one of his first acts in office, he signs Executive Order Schedule F, which allows him to transfer or fire government officials as he sees fit. It's common for new presidents to replace up to 4,000 political appointees, such as diplomats, when they take office. But most civil servants have permanent jobs and enjoy special protections. Not in this case. Trump could theoretically fire up to 50,000 civil servants in his first days in office and replace them with new ones. Insiders told the magazine Axios that positions in the Department of Justice, the State Department, and FBI could be particularly targeted.
As we completely overhaul the Federal Department of Justice and FBI, we will also launch sweeping civil rights investigations into Marxist local district attorneys.
Trump is also focusing on the courts. He wants to appoint 100 federal attorneys to investigate what he's calling Marxist district attorneys.
They will be the 100 most ferocious legal warriors against crime and communist corruption that this country has ever seen.
District attorneys are among the most powerful people in the legal system. They investigate and prosecute crimes at the state level. It was also a district attorney who opened one of the cases against Trump, resulting in his conviction for covering up hush money payments. In contrast, US attorneys investigate suspects who break federal laws. For instance, they prosecute criminals who use stolen online identities to order goods or take out subscriptions. This might sound like something out of a movie, but it's a harsh reality. And it could happen to you. We all share information online, like contact details, locations, and passwords. But sometimes data brokers are quietly collecting and selling that information, making it easy for cybercriminals to get hold of it. The good news, you can do something about it. Incogni forces data brokers to delete your personal info. Just sign up with Incogni and they'll handle the rest, keeping you in the loop every step of the way. By scanning this QR code or via incogni.com/FernTV, you can get an exclusive 60% off an annual Incogni plan with the code FernTV. With the Family and Friends plan, you can invite up to 4 additional people. Always handle your personal data with care. It's common for presidents to appoint new US attorneys, but to order 100 federal prosecutors to investigate directly against district attorneys would be unique. Since Trump's presidency, the Supreme Court has had a clear conservative majority. Trump appointed 3 of the 9 justices. Recently, the court decided that the US president has absolute immunity for core constitutional powers and at least presumptive immunity for official presidential acts. Article 2 of the US Constitution defines official acts broadly. The president needs some form of flexibility in order to govern effectively. A lower court is now examining which acts are official and which are private. One of the 3 justices announced by the Democrats criticized that this decision would allow the president to act like a king above the law. After taking office, Trump could try to end all ongoing investigations against him. And he could initiate investigations against his political opponents, as he has already announced several times. Trump also has a clear focus on law and order.
In cities where there has been a complete breakdown of law and order, where the fundamental right of our citizens are being intolerably violated, I will not hesitate to send in federal assets, including the National Guard, until safety is restored.
The key element here is a more than 200-year-old law that governs the use of the US military in times of unrest, the Insurrection Act. Back in 2020, Trump wanted to use the National Guard to suppress the protests after the murder of George Floyd, but his military leadership stopped him. Trump later expressed regret and said he wouldn't hesitate to do so in the future. Next, let's take a look at a few possible policies Trump could enact. Agenda 47 is Trump's manifesto for this election. Most of his ideas can also be found in the 2024 Republican Party platform. We are focusing on selected items because it's challenging to interpret some of Trump's quotes.
As soon as I take the oath of office, we will begin the largest deportation operation in the history of our country.
This is Trump's core promise. He talks about arresting and deporting, in his words, illegal immigrants. It's estimated that around 11 million people live in the US without official permission. Of these, 80% have been in the country for more than 10 years. These people would have to leave the states. Trump has promised to close the Mexican border completely on day 1, and he still wants to build a border wall.
On day 1 of the Trump presidency, I'm restoring the travel ban, suspending refugee admissions, and keeping terrorists the hell out of our country.
This travel ban targets countries with mainly Muslim populations. At the same time, Trump wants to bring Christian prayer back into schools.
5th, we will support bringing back prayer to our schools.
Many Republicans have criticized the Department of Education in Washington for introducing more progressive or woke content into school curricula. That's why they want to abolish the Department of Education and give control of education policy to the states. Trump has announced similar plans. He wants to target topics such as transgender ideology and critical race theory. Schools would lose funding if they include these or other inappropriate topics. What counts as inappropriate content is left fairly undefined. He also wants only teachers with patriotic values to be hired. He has not clarified what he means by patriotic values or how he plans to enforce this.
No serious country should be telling its children that they were born with the wrong gender, a concept that was never heard of in all of human history. Nobody's ever heard of this, what's happening today.
Trump wants to remove the diverse gender option from US passports, allowing only male and female options.
My cutting-edge trade agenda will revitalize our economy by once again putting America first. We will quickly become a manufacturing powerhouse like the world has never seen before.
Trump's America First approach aims to boost US industries and reduce the trade deficit. He suggested setting a minimum 10% tariff on all imports, with tariffs on Chinese imports potentially rising to over 60%. This has received a lot of criticism. We can recommend this video on why economists generally don't like Trump's tariff plan. 16 Nobel laureates in economics have published an open letter warning that Trump's proposed economic policies could destabilize the US economy and lead to inflation, unless spending is drastically cut. Some economists argue that his promised deep cuts in non-defense spending are unlikely, and that he failed to implement them in his first term. A study by the Peterson Institute for International Economics found that Trump's trade and tax proposals would mostly help very wealthy people and especially hurt low and middle-income Americans. The study calculated that a typical middle-class household could expect to spend an additional $1,700 per year. Trump wants to cancel the climate protection policies implemented by the previous administration. Instead of investing in green energy, he wants to go all in on fossil fuels. Under Trump, the US would once again withdraw from the Paris Climate Agreement.
If I were president, the Russia-Ukraine war would never have happened, never in a million years. But even now, if I were president, I'd be able to negotiate an end to this horrible and rapidly escalating war within 24 hours.
Trump has said several times that he could end the war in Ukraine in one day. He has not specified how he intends to accomplish that. Even if taken as hyperbole, it's doubtful this could happen in Ukraine's favor. In an interview with the British Times, he said that financial and military aid would play a major role. Sources close to Trump told the Washington Post that he may be considering ceding some of the occupied Ukrainian territory to Russia. As Europeans, we feel compelled to emphasize that our military leaders broadly agree that Putin's regime is imperialist and expansionist. It is committing horrendous war crimes in Ukraine. If you would like to learn about them, you can find a series of links in our sources. They are undeniable and well documented. In short, Russia wants to establish a new world order and threatens peace on the entire continent if left unchecked. And indeed, Europe does need to strengthen its military capabilities significantly in any scenario. At this point, we need to discuss Project 2025. What is it? Does Trump know about it? And would it impact his potential presidency? The most important part of Project 2025 is a 920-page manifesto that came out in 2023. It's called the Mandate for Leadership. It contains detailed proposals for the next Republican president. Behind the project is the Heritage Foundation, a powerful conservative think tank backed by more than 100 organizations. According to CNN, 140 former Trump staffers are involved in Project 2025, including 31 of the 38 authors.
This is a great group, and they're going to lay the groundwork and detail plans for exactly what our movement will do.
A key part of the project is a plan for Trump's first 180 days in office. Its contents are secret to prevent Trump's opponents from preparing. But some information has leaked. This is Russell Vought, one of the key figures behind the project and a close Trump ally.
I want to thank Russ for doing an incredible job.
He was secretly recorded by journalists posing as relatives of a major conservative donor.
I think you have to rehabilitate Christian nationalism.
He says his organization is working on hundreds of new executive orders and regulations. A major goal is to help replace government officials. For this, the project has already selected and trained tens of thousands of candidates. Trump's team would just have to scroll through a database and pick. You can still apply on their website to possibly join the next Trump administration. But most importantly, Project 2025 wants to bring many currently independent agencies directly under Trump's control.
80% of my time is working on the plans of what's necessary to take control of these bureaucracies, and we are working doggedly on that, whether it's destroying their agency's notion of independence, they're independent from the president.
Project 2025 supports a maximalist version of the unitary executive theory. It wants the president to have complete control over the executive branch. This could undermine independent agencies and weaken checks and balances. When the project was made public, it faced intense criticism.
Project 2025.
It's a blueprint for a radical far-right takeover.
Project 2025 includes a massive overhaul of the federal government as we know it.
As the criticism grew, Trump began to distance himself.
Let me ask you about Project 2025.
Nothing. I know nothing about it. Project 25 has absolutely nothing to do with me. And then they read some of the things, and they are extreme. I mean, they're seriously extreme. But I don't know anything about it. I don't want to know anything about it.
In stark contrast, this is what Russell Vought said behind closed doors.
He's been at our organization. He's raised money for our organization. He's blessed it from the, I remember walking into our last day in office and told him what I was going to do. So he's very supportive of what we do.
The Heritage Foundation has officially suspended its policy work on Project 2025. However, just days before, Russell Vought said in private that they were still working on the plan for the first 180 days. He called it Phase 2. In this phase, he explained, they're preparing executive orders and agency reorganizations. The goal is to implement Trump's agenda as quickly and effectively as possible, should he win. Again, it's unclear how much, if any, of Project 2025's agenda Trump would actually implement. While the team behind it has clear ties to him, he distances himself from it after all. In light of this, let's cautiously entertain some of Project 2025's proposals for a minute.
Pornography should be outlawed. The people who produce and distribute it should be imprisoned. Educators and public librarians who purvey it should be classed as registered sex offenders. And telecommunications and technology firms that facilitate its spread should be shuttered.
The project is pushing for the removal of transgender individuals from military service. They also want to remove existing protections against discrimination based on sexual orientation and gender identity. This could potentially disadvantage queer people in getting healthcare or housing. Access to abortion services would be severely limited. The project's proposed policies would make it illegal to ship abortion-inducing drugs across state lines. Reports suggest that medication is used in more than half of all abortions in the US. Moreover, health insurance would no longer cover the cost of the morning after pill. One last reminder, Project 2025 has clear ties to Trump. That does not mean that he would enact the proposed policies. However, it is not outlandish to assume that he would at least take a look at them. No matter how this election turns out, we'll be watching anxiously from across the ocean. For better or worse, who leads the United States impacts the entire world.